Hey, what's going on, guys? So we're taking a look at the Netflix series Gundam Requiem for Vengeance kits. We took a look at the Zaku, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Gundam EX from that series. Very interesting kits, certainly very unique designs, very polarizing designs. Some people like them a lot, some people not so much. For me, I enjoyed the series and I'm interested in checking out seeing what this Gundam kit is going to be like. There are certain aspects of the design that I like more than others, but I think as far as just the kit goes, I'm expecting it to be pretty nice. So let's go ahead and check it out here for today's video. All right, then here for the box art before we get into the rest of the kit. Certainly looking really cool with this nighttime scene, the full moon there in the background. Of course, if you guys have seen the series, it's a very iconic scene there of the Gundam, or certainly a very memorable scene of the Gundam. The detail on this illustration certainly looking really, really cool with that beam saber effect. That was another thing that was really interesting about the Gundam in this series. And yeah, if nothing else, I mean, you certainly have to appreciate the illustration here on the box art. Looks really, really cool. On the ends of the box, we just got the same thing there. This is number 255 in the lineup. And then here on the bottom of the box, we can see what the kit is going to look like, all built and painted, panel lined, and probably some markings on there as well. It looks like front and back. Over here, some details about the action and some of the weapons and gimmicks and everything that we've got. The shoulder Gatling gun, the shield, the beam saber, of course. It looks like it's going to be the same beam saber effect that we always get. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to have a new beam saber effect for this, like a very thin and, I don't know, slightly different shaped one would have been good. Something to fit the look from the series would have been nice. We got the beam rifle there as well, the gimmicks and markings. And it looks like we have a couple different options for the eyes there as well, which looks pretty cool. On the other side of the box, just more information about the Requiem for Vengeance series there, QR codes, information in Japanese and in English if you want to check that out. But of course, you guys can watch it on Netflix. And if you haven't yet, I honestly would recommend that you do. It's only a few episodes, and you know, I would recommend watching it in Japanese if you can, if you don't mind reading the subtitles. I think that's probably the better way to view it, in my opinion. But let's check out the instruction manual here, which is a very typical HGUC instruction manual. We have a nice big painted model kit here for our reference with all the markings and everything on it there as well. We got information about the Gundam, height, weight, generator output, material, armaments, all that good stuff there. And around on the backside, like we saw with the Zaku, it's got more information about the Gundam and then some more information about some of the aspects here, like the camera eye, the shoulder Gatling gun, the beam saber, the beam rifle. So you can read up a little bit of information on that stuff if you so choose. We got the marking guide down here and the color guide there as well. It's kind of interesting that the Gundam doesn't have that typical tricolor scheme, but I think that was just another way to kind of differentiate this from your standard Gundam. Also considering that the Gundam is sort of the enemy in the series, and so had it been in the typical, you know, heroic red, blue, yellow, and white color scheme, I think anyway, this kind of more all-white color scheme makes it a bit more spooky looking, right? So here we've got the parts list right there and our construction. It's mostly going to be here on our black and white pages. Then as you saw, that is going to continue on to the color pages on the backside for the rest of the construction right there, all the way to the end. And then although the Zaku did not feature any foil stickers, we do have some foil stickers here with this one for the eyes, camera bits, and a couple other bits on there, like the Federation logo on the shield, it looks like. This one probably for the beam rifle. And then we also separately have a sticker decal sheet here for some more markings around on the design there. It looks like mostly red for the color of these markings. Some really, really fine details on some of these as well. But let's get into the runners. We do not have any polycaps. We do have our clear pink beam saber effect parts here, SB12. Again, kind of disappointed that they're not new beam saber effect parts, but they are in a little bit lighter color than usual, which I think matches the series pretty well, so not too bad. Runner A is going to be a big old runner here with a bunch of parts here in this nice off-white color, and of course we've got a ton of detail on here. Runner B is the rest of our off-white armor pieces. We've got two of this B runner. Runner C is here in just a light gray, which is going to give us some nice color separation for the armor. That'll look nice. And then runners D and E are going to be in this dark gunmetal color here for the frame and joint parts, mechanical detail parts. Here's runner D. Runner E we have two of for a bunch more of the smaller parts there. And then we have runner F1 and F2. F1 is here in dark red for basically a few parts there for the feet, a couple little bits there for the shield and the head. And then runner F2 is also here in off-white, but it's in this soft rubber material here, basically for the chain for the Gatling gun on the backpack, I believe. And so before I go ahead and build this up, one thing to note, we saw this with the Zaku, but even more so with this kit, I feel like there's a lot of parts here. So this is an HG kit, but it does have quite a lot of parts. But it's great to see that it's a design that has a ton of detail, and we are actually going to have a ton of parts to match that. But let me go ahead and get it all built up, and then we'll check it out and see what we think. And all right, guys, here is the kit all built up and put together. Really, once again with this one, incredibly detailed and a lot of really cool part separation in there. Very unique design that may not be for everyone, but it most certainly is very unique. While putting this kit together on the live stream yesterday, actually, I was building it thinking that it felt very familiar to building the recent 30 Minutes Missions Armored Core kit from Bandai. And so that it felt sort of like building an Armored Core version of the Gundam, kind of, after building that kit. So you guys might see some of the similarities just in terms of all the little armor details and everything like that. So it's certainly very cool, very unique. And again, with this one, a pretty solid build. I didn't really mention too much about that with the Zaku kit, but it was very solid feeling. And this one is the same. We got some cool weapons and accessories with this also. So let's go ahead and take a look at those here to start off the review. All right, so for our hand options, we don't have a whole lot, unfortunately, just these holding hands here. These are kind of interesting too, for the reason that these are just straight peg in hands, not ball joint hands, which is kind of the norm, what we've been seeing for HGs like for the longest time. So your wrist articulation will be a bit limited on this one. But then the only other hand option that we have is here a trigger finger hand, which I've already affixed onto the beam rifle here. And the beam rifle is a really cool design. This forward handle at the front unfortunately does not move. That's kind of disappointing that you can't rotate that to the side for a two-handed grip. And you'll notice that yellow up there for the camera, that's a yellow sticker for that, unfortunately. The good thing is that we don't really have any seam lines anywhere on this. You'll notice we have this little peg here on the side that you can use to attach the beam rifle here onto the back of the hip section. Obviously not with the trigger finger hand attached onto there. You'll have to take that off. Or I guess you don't have to, but I will be taking it off in order to affix this onto the back skirt for you guys for demonstration later. Also, the camera on the top doesn't move, so a little bit disappointing in that the handle and the camera aren't able to move on this one, as that's kind of the norm for the Gundam's beam rifle usually. And then we've got our clear pink beam saber effect parts. Again, kind of disappointed that we didn't get new beam effect parts for this, considering that the beam effects in the series do look kind of different from normal. It would have been nice to get some cool new ones to go along with this. We do have 3 beam saber handles. Actually, you have 4. You have one that's left over, but you have 3 here on the kit. And so obviously you aren't able to ever hold more than just 2. So we have our 2. And then I think in the anime, we only ever saw it using 1 at a time anyway, too. So anyway, it's pretty cool how this whole beam saber rack will fold up like that, rotate up, and then each of these can rotate forward as well for like to reach up and grab these from the rack. You can just rotate that forward and then pop the beam saber handle off of there. And kind of interesting how the beam saber rack here and also the mini Gatling gun over here on the side are not actually attached onto the backpack, but actually onto the back of the torso right next to the backpack. So the backpack's just the center part here. And both of those are just plugged in kind of just off to the side there. Then we've got our shield, which also has a couple of yellow stickers on there. That is a molded detail though, so if you are going to be wanting to paint that or whatever later, you can mask and paint that as you want. The stickers actually work kind of decently on there, and there's just a couple of pieces, basically this off-white piece, the red piece, the main gray piece, and then a second gray piece there for the handle. On the back side here, as you can see, a whole bunch of detail there, which looks nice. And then the handle looks like it's kind of on a track, but it's not an actual moving part. It's just on a ball joint, so this will kind of move around a little bit. So again, kind of a shame that this wasn't on a like moving track up and down, and that there's no way to actually connect this onto the arm. It's only just going to be relying on the hand. I feel like the hand should be able to hold this up, no problem. And then the fact that it's a peg in hand and not a ball joint there for the hand might actually be useful for holding the shield, because if it was a ball joint, it might kind of droop a bit easier. But with this being a square handle and like a square shape there, and then it just being a peg in the hand, it should be able to hold this pretty well, I feel like. And the shield, although it is quite large, it's not very heavy at all, and it's very thin, so shouldn't have too much issue with that. And lastly, we've got our action base adapter piece, which is going to plug right up into there, and this will just fit on your standard 3mm peg attachment piece there for the action base. And that's it for all of the accessories. Just to point out the other stickers that we have here, you do have a little teeny tiny red sticker for up there on the head camera. Got a sticker for the eyes, of course. Another super teeny tiny one. If you look right there on the crotch, there's that little tiny bit of yellow right there, kind of similar to how the Gundam has the little yellow V there on its crotch. That's carried over to this design, but it's super duper tiny. So it's like a little red square with like a little yellow sort of V looking shape in there, and that's it. And here on the side skirts, you have a couple of red stickers for that little bit right there on the side of the side skirts there. And that's it for the stickers. But just to remind you guys too, that you do have a couple of different options for the eyes, depending on how you want those to look. But again, it's so small, it's going to be really hard to kind of notice much of a difference between them, but you do have an option for those. Let's talk about some of the articulation here with this guy. So our head, we'll be able to move up, and it's actually a double joint. If we kind of move this up like that, you can get it up pretty high, up like that, and then down and rotation, no issues there. You have a pretty nice ab crunch here in the midsection. Let's see, you can also get it a little bit side to side as well, but when that's moved forward, if you go around here to the back, it exposes some nice mechanical detail up inside of there, so that's cool. It's better than if it's just like a big hollow space, which there's a little bit of that up in there, but there is going to be some nice mechanical detail if you have this bent forward. The shoulders will also rotate pretty far forward to the front like that, and again, some nice detail on those parts. The shoulders are really interesting in that this shoulder armor is not separate from like what the arm is actually connected into. So basically the arm is connected all through the shoulder armor. So you normally would be able to like have the shoulder armor a little bit up and then the arm a little bit down, but they're just connected together. So basically the shoulder armor is connected to like the top of the arm. It's not like a separate unit as it normally is. This part here on the top, we'll be able to move up and down a little bit like that. But yeah, this whole shoulder section is kind of interesting for that reason. But otherwise, the arm's gonna work pretty normally, just rotation there at the top. A double joint in the elbow is gonna give you a nice full bend there. And then as we talked about, the wrist is on a peg, so rotation only for that. Going down here to our skirting armor, each one is gonna be individually articulated and work pretty nicely. Even over here on the side skirts, although they're small, these will be able to lift up and down, and the back skirts as well will move up and down. I do kind of like that the back skirts and front skirts are not the same, but they are slightly different in shape, so that looks pretty cool. And although it works a little bit differently, the function is going to be the same for the hip joint here, similar to the Zaku, in that it's the kind of typical sort of standard hip joint where it will drop down so you can extend the leg farther up to the front. If we move our skirt armor here, it'll still only go to about like sort of 90 degrees. Otherwise, if you don't drop that hip joint down and you just try moving the leg to the front, it's going to be pretty limited. So you are definitely going to need that if you want the leg to be raised to any like higher degree there. And then we do have a double joint here for the knee, which is going to give you a pretty nice full bend. And then again, a lot of great detail on the frame that exposes. The knee armor is not separated, so that doesn't move separately or anything. That's just all part of the lower part of the leg. But do notice how all of this armor on the leg, and then everywhere else as well, but especially nice here on the leg, you have like front piece, side piece, back piece, all the armor is separated in a way so that we're not going to have any seam lines or anything on there, which is always a nice thing. Down here at the ankle, this ankle armor will move up and down there, connected onto like the sides of the foot. This flap here on the back is connected at the bottom of the leg. That will also move up and down a little bit. Up underneath the feet, you've got nice full detail there. No hollow gaps at all or anything, so that's good. The feet will be able to move up pretty far to the front and then back only to about there, slightly limited. Side to side, gonna be pretty nice here. And there on the ankle armor, you can see one of our few instances of like sort of a seam line, the way that the seam kind of runs through that detail there. I think with the way that the rest of the details are for this kit, you can kind of just leave that as is. It's not going to necessarily look like it's a seam line, except for the fact that these are identical. I wish that these would have been asymmetrical on the left and the right side. Having one on the left and one on the right side would have made that look a lot better. But yeah, one other point about the seam lines is that even here on the forearm, you have a little bit like right there and a little bit right here, but it's made up as a panel line detail, so you don't have to worry about removing the seams pretty much anywhere on this kit, so that's nice. Okay, anyway, then back around to the backpack. As we saw, the beam saber rack will move up and down, but also these thrusters here can move up and down individually like so. And also just want to point out to you guys that you can see the backpack is connected via kind of the standard HG 2-peg adapter there. So if you wanted to use any other different backpacks on this, or if you want to use this backpack on something else, like 30 minutes missions or anything like that, you can also use some of the different backpack parts just attached onto there. And as for the Gatling gun, this will rotate forward, and that's pretty much it. But a really kind of cool thing about this is where that soft rubber piece is connected over here into the ammo drum, and when you rotate that forward, that whole center part of that ammo drum also will move up and down. So this part moves along with that, which is pretty cool. So I like that a lot. But anyway, guys, so as far as the accessories go for this one, I mean, they're going to be pretty standard, pretty normal. You've got a shield, beam rifle, beam sabers, and that's kind of about it. And then the fact that the accessories also kind of don't really have as much functionality built into them as some other different versions of the Gundam, with the rifle not having moving parts and the shield not having the handle being able to move on a track, things like that. I mean, this is a HG at the end of the day, so not everything is going to do like what it's typically meant to do, but a couple of features that I think would have been nice to have on our accessories here for this one. But, you know, like with everything else, the accessories certainly are unique, like with the rest of the whole design of this kit, and that's going to be, I think, one of the main reasons why people are going to be wanting to pick up this kit for its uniqueness. Kind of similar to the G40th when that came out. It was a design that was certainly very different. A lot of people had mixed opinions on the design, but I think a lot of people ended up wanting to pick up the kit just for its uniqueness. I was certainly one of them. That ended up being sort of a collector's item, and that's another good reason I should mention too about these kits, is that it's likely that these kits are not going to be reprinted very often. So there's sort of a collector's item in that they're going to be, I'm sure, kind of a rarity as the time goes on, that they're not really going to be too readily available. So they're the kind of kits that I would maybe recommend if you're just wanting to maybe collect them unique Gundam kits that are going to be sort of rare, sort of like a P Bandai, but you know, you don't have to actually go through P Bandai. You can just get it through your normal sources. But as I've already been hearing from people in different parts of the world, you know, in some countries, these kits are already really expensive, really marked up, really hard to get. So especially if you're living in the US and you have pretty easy access to them for the time being, I would highly recommend maybe picking up these kits, you know, just in case sort of thing, even if you're not totally sold on the design. So anyway, just a thought to consider for you guys, but let me know your opinions on the kit in the comment section below. What do you think about the design? There's a couple things that I want to add, a couple things I might want to change. So let's go ahead and talk about some customization on this. And I've got a kind of interesting customization sort of tutorial demonstration that I want to share with you guys. So let's take a look at that. And all right, now one thing that I want to do with this is to add some reactive armor. So if you guys saw the last episode of Plamono Trend last week, yes, Plamono Trend is back if you guys didn't see that. Ryan and I took a look at a build from Awaxi of his Camphor, and I thought that would be really fun to try making some reactive armor like that. Basically, you just mold it out of epoxy putty, add a couple little details on it, and that's pretty much it. Then you got it, and you can just attach it to your kit. So I was thinking I wanted to add it here onto the Gundam. I thought, okay, on the chest might be kind of cool, yeah, but I'm not sure if that's really right. And I thought actually on the shield here would be really awesome. So what I want to do is add a few pieces up here, I think 4. So like 1, 2, 3, 4 bits of reactive armor here onto the top of the shield. It kind of makes sense. So once again, like we did for making the Zimmerit on the Zaku, we're going to use some 2-part epoxy putty here like this. And so once again, we're just going to grab a little bit, equal amounts of each, and just mix it up. And again, you just want to mix it up until it's the color is completely mixed, so that you're not seeing any white or dark yellow. It should make a nice even color. And then what I want to do is then just basically separate this out. I'm going to make 4 pieces, so I'm just going to separate this just like that, and then basically just need to make this into like a block shape. Essentially just something kind of like that, roughly squarish in shape. Sort of looks like a little piece of corn there, but it doesn't need to be super precise at this point, because then once it dries and cures, we can sand it down. We are going to be sanding it down and kind of shaping it a little bit more. So as long as it's like squarish in shape, then that'll be fine for right now. We just got to wait for it to cure. And while we're waiting for that putty to do its thing, I want to address the other part of this kit that I would like to change, and that would be the head. So the rest of the design, you know, it's very different, very unique. I can get down with it though. Even the face, I mean, and the head, I mean, it's not awful, but it's something that I would like more if it was a little bit different looking. So I think what I want to try to do is kit bash a new face for this Gundam. I think is just going to be the best way to go about it. Now, what I might try to do first is just, you see like these like little raised sort of like ribs there on the side of the face. Maybe file those down. This part here that kind of extends near the chin, maybe also file that down a little bit, and then just kind of see how it looks, see how I might like that. And then if not, I'm gonna be like just completely getting rid of the face, and then also on these parts on the side of the head, cutting this back a little bit. So basically this whole part that extends out to the front, cutting that all back. And then I've got some leftover parts here that I think I can use for basically making a new face for. So this is some parts from the Love Phantom kit, I think it was. Had all these leftover head parts, where I'll basically just take all these face parts and then fit them into the Gundam's helmet there. And then also thinking about replacing the V-fin here. This is another one, just leftover parts from a different kit. Replacing this with a little bit more kind of traditional V-fin. I think another problem is that the V-fin is situated like up very high on the head, and also doesn't have not very much of like the typical Gundam's like pointed bit here at the end. So I think maybe replacing that part with a bit more traditional looking V-fin sort of part also might look kind of nice on there. So those are a couple of things I'm going to try out, and then also going to maybe try out putting this little I think it's just like a Vulcan or camera part. It's a part from a Jagan head. I'm not exactly entirely sure on what it's meant to be, but maybe possibly adding this onto the side of the head as well I think could be a good fit. And then in that case I might swap the antenna. I might cut that off and then use a little piece of brass rod in there rather than this plastic antenna. So I'm going to work a little bit on this, and let me come back here and show you guys what I come up with. All right, and well, actually kind of worked out pretty well here. As you can see on the head, like I said, I got rid of the details here on the cheek, and then also just cut back these parts here on the chin a little bit. These need to be, I mean, if I'm going to go with this for sure, need to be refined a little bit. I can see that they're maybe slightly uneven, but I think just that alone is definitely an improvement. So I mean, if that's something that you guys might be interested in, I do still want to try swapping the face, but I'm gonna try to just keep these parts like this, and then just so that if that doesn't work out, I can then just go ahead and use these. I think I'm okay with that. It's definitely an improvement. I might try to shape the little bits of armor around the side of the face a little bit more and tweak those, and I'm still thinking to swap the V-fin still, but that's not a bad option, I feel like, just doing that. Okay, and so then here with these face parts, just kind of temporarily set in there. Now I can play with how far this is either set in or out. I might set it, I think it's probably about where it should be, but could, for example, set it a bit further in, a bit deeper. There's space in there for it. Also, I could set it a bit lower. Might try to make it just a little bit lower, and I think this is what I want to go with. I removed the clear part temporarily for the eyes, just as I'm trying to like just check the placement. And part of the original face is also these bits here on the side are also like what is like the inner detail for inside these little vents there on the side of the head. So that basically I can just cut off from this part and then just glue that in to the inside of the head right there, or just keep it as a separate part if I want to try to paint that separately, but might opt to just glue that in place. And then for the V-fin, whether we want to go with the original V-fin here or not, I'm still thinking that might try to swap the V-fin as well. I think will be a better look here for this. Now everything's just kind of very temporarily placed, just as I'm just trying to kind of size it up. So, but I think this will look good, so this is what I'm going to go with. Let me go ahead and actually get everything together kind of a bit more permanently here, and we'll see how it looks. Alright, and here is how this is looking so far. It's going to take a little bit more just kind of clean up on it. I got to add those parts back in for the vents and the head, or I don't know, maybe just leave that open. It's kind of cool looking. Just open like that, I don't know. We'll see. I want to get some primer on here too to get a better feel for this, but popping this back onto the kit here, and it's going to be looking kind of funky, all multicolored like that. It doesn't really look quite right, but with some primer on there, you can kind of get a sense of how that's going to be looking. Definitely a lot more depth to that. I also think that I need to raise the face up a little bit. You can see that gap there for the eyes. The eyes may be a little bit too low. I need the eyes to be up just slightly higher, but that's a pretty easy fix. Otherwise, it's shaping up to be looking pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with that as just something different, something custom. I didn't mind too bad just the quick, like short modification that we made at first, but I think this one will be nice just because, like I said, yeah, it's just something a little bit more unique. So that's gonna do it for right now. I'm still waiting for the putty to cure a bit more here so we can take a look at finishing off these parts here for the reactive armor on the shield, but you can kind of get a sense, if I can balance this, how that's going to be looking. But yeah, the putty's not really totally cured yet. I want to give that some more time, but for now I wanted to share this with you guys. We'll come back and work on this some more in part 2, where we'll finish off that detail. I'll show you guys what the completed head is going to be looking like, and we'll start on painting the kit. For the color scheme on this one, I'm thinking to go with a color scheme sort of similar, something like the Heavy Gundam. I think that would look kind of cool on this Gundam design, so that's my thought for the moment. But I'll let you guys know in part 2 of this video, where we'll come back, finish everything up, and then take a look at the finished product. Stay tuned for that. That'll be after the holiday break into the beginning of January, but I'll have that for you guys as soon as I can. In the meantime, if you guys want to check out these kits, check them out there on the website at usagundamstore.com. The link will be down in the video description below. As always, guys, check these out there. And if you enjoyed the video today, make sure to leave a like, make sure that you're subscribed. I really appreciate your guys' support. Till next time, I'll see y'all later. Have a good one. Bye, guys.